All that ugly contact is messing with Caitlin Clark's shot and her head. Caitlin Clark's insuperable ease when she's at her best is what's so transfixing about her game. She kites the ball to the rim as effortlessly as a kid sails a paper airplane. But right now, the ease is gone. What started as a minor off night has become a recognizable slump. In the Indiana Fever's past 3 games, she made just 1 of 23 shots from the 3-point line. She's all knotted up. The cure starts with this. She needs to find the play in playing again. If only the officials will let her. The causes of slumps are various, and the fixes can be complicated. Is her balance slightly off? Is the arc on the ball too high? Is she pressing on her shot selection? Can the Fever do more schematically to loosen up defenses? Is it a hangover from the quad strain that kept her out of 5 games? All of those may be the case, but it's also true that execrable officiating is a major contributor. The ludicrous rugby level of contact in the WNBA not only uglifies the product for fans, but it has significantly messed with the head of the game's best shooter. Great shooters find a sense of physical quietude. Even in the maelstrom, there's a kind of blankness in their gaze as they screen out all the stimuli. But Clark is having to claw through, over and around so many obstacles that it's difficult for her to get quiet. Against the storm, she looked like a marionette with its strings tangled. Nothing flowed. Some of that was Seattle's legitimately terrific defense, but it also has become habitual for teams to continually bang and tug at her every time she tries to relocate. The physical discomfort has become mental disorientation. Space is so tight that she has been rushing and doesn't seem to be shooting the ball so much as flinging it. There are 4 stages to a shooter's mind, says Doc Shepler, Jeremy Lin's longtime shot mechanics doctor and a multi-title winning girls coach at Pinewood High in Northern California. I know it's going in. I want it to go in. I hope it goes in. And I'm begging it to go in. When somebody performs their best in any sport, there's a no to it. Clark is hoping instead of knowing. Part of the difficulty in curing a slump is that shooters live in a state of denial. They don't want to disrupt their knowingness, so they aren't especially willing to even admit a slump is a slump. Recently, Pacers' Greg Miller, who went 1 for 16 in the opening game of the 2000 NBA Finals, told the Indianapolis Star, "When you're asking me to revisit some of my shooting slumps, I'm going to ask you, what shooting slumps?" Fraser observes, "The big question is, how do you address it and fix it?" And that's the tricky equation, because you don't want to admit to a player they're in a slump if you can help it. You can't say it. The worst thing a shooter can do is think. That may be part of Clark's trouble these past few games, and it's reminiscent of what Curry went through as he became the Warriors' front man. Clark's role is so large, her responsibilities so multiple as the main ball handler, facilitator, and chief scoring option, that she's forced to continually think and rethink, not just for herself, but for others. The stress of being guarded for 90 feet may simply be adding up. She never gets an easy catch and shoot. She never gets one, Shepler observes. When she brings it up the court, she has somebody in her grill. After made baskets, there's somebody in her grill. As Curry's shot mechanic Brandon Payne has observed, a shot is not a single motion, but a sequence. Curry must work so hard with, and for, the ball to create space that his sequencing can get out of order, especially when he has to fight through excessive physical contact. In 2022, Curry went through a horrible stretch in which he made just 8 of 41 attempts from the field. Fraser trod lightly with him. Shooters are so tactile that they might overcorrect. If Fraser talked to him about a specific arm angle, Curry would focus on it too much, and it would cost him his greatest gift, his feel. Eventually, They discovered the slump was related to the fact that Curry had started releasing from his toes rather than the balls of his feet. Over the years, Curry has learned to absorb contact and find space without letting it alter his motion. Until he was able to do that, his shot was changing, Fraser says. Clark is in a similar phase. She's seeing ever more physicality and intensity from defenses. They're trapping her, blitzing her. The shots are few and far between, and the level of difficulty goes up, Fraser says. She is probably enduring some of the same stuff. It's not just a slump. The ability to get shots is increasingly difficult. Adjusting to the higher degree of difficulty is as much mental as physical, Fraser says. These days, Fraser points out, Curry doesn't really have deep slumps. Part of his maturity now is that those missed shots don't continue to bother him. It doesn't affect him like it used to. He's matured through that state. She will too. It's just part of her growth. In other words, Clark doesn't need to break her slump so much as live through it. As a great shooter matures, their sequence becomes ever more reflexive. Curry is so knowing that he often doesn't even watch the ball in flight. He's already looking at the opposing bench because he knows. How does such a similarly sensitive, intuitive shooter, such as Clark, recover that level of knowingness? Perhaps she should listen to Curry, who has observed that the main thing he seeks to do in breaking a slump is rediscover the basic pleasure of shooting. I'm not worried about the selection as much as figuring out what needs to change in terms of knocking them down and finding the joy of shooting the ball, Curry once said. Different players and coaches have different mental practices for doing that. At Connecticut, Gino Auriemma and assistant Chris Daly tell players to work on swishes, not just making shots, but making the net ripple cleanly. But Shepler recommends an even simpler mental practice. Watch great shooters shoot. In Clark's case, that would be herself.